Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above Average Shoe Show!
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Above Average Joe Show. We have a wonderful guest here today with us, who is Christopher Marks. Chris Marks is with us, actor extraordinaire. He has worked on several things. Say hello to Chris Marks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure to be on this show.
And as always, I am your host, Joe.
You know what? You just made the list!
Okay, moving on from that. Chris, it's good to have you here today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Joe. It's a pleasure to be on this show.
And you have had a lot of work here lately on some pretty notable shows. You've been on Burn Notice, Tycoon, Turn, Stars, Roommates Unwanted, and you just came out with Off the Rails.
It's having its official U.S. debut. It already premiered in the United Kingdom in October. It actually won a couple of film festival awards over there for Best Feature and Best Actress. That same movie is also going to several film festivals across the country. It's going to St. Petersburg, Florida. It's going to Kansas. It's going to Salt Lake City, Utah. It's going to Phoenix, Arizona. It's going all over the place. I'm hoping that it will come closer to Atlanta so I can finally see it for myself. I definitely would be going to Miami. I have a lot of friends and family down there, but I'm getting married in April, and we're going to...
Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much. We're getting married in the Grand Canyon, so we can't really afford an extra trip right now, even though I want to go to Miami so I can see my movie.
Maybe they should show it in the Grand Canyon during the wedding. Get it like a twofer.
Get a giant projector. I think we can pull that off.
And you can recite your lines as it's on screen.
Oh, yes. Especially when I'm like beating people up and destroying vehicles and things.
And what is the movie about? What is like the main plot?
Basically, it's actually based on a true story. It takes place in the 1970s. These three guys, they're like late teens, early 20s. They get the opportunity to open a bar together, and they have no clue how to run a business, how to run a bar, and they're just kind of like making it up as they go. It's kind of a dramedy. There's definitely a lot of comedy to it, but there's a lot of real things going on. And the way their bar was a success, at least for a short while, every night they had a different theme, and things just got crazy every single night. Sometimes they would have riots. Sometimes they would have like things get out of control for a number of reasons, but they would always make a lot of money, so they kept doing it. My character is Chuck, and he's a gang leader who pretty much has laid claim to that bar when it closed down, and now that it's reopened, he's back, and I cause a lot of trouble while I'm there. I beat people up. I may or may not smash a car with a sledgehammer. I don't know. A lot of the fun that happens on the bar is provoked just by the people that they have attending there. The action, so to speak, that's provoked at this bar only happens on one occasion because of me. All the others, it was just the three guys that run the bar and all the themes that they have and all the people that come to their bar. So like one night they have like wet t-shirt contest, one night they have like a Hawaii theme, the next night they have steak night or something like that, and just I don't know, I haven't read the
Crazy steak night.
Crazy steak night, you're damn right.
We've got 17-ounce steaks instead of the 16-ounce.
It's been a while since I've read the entire script. We filmed it about 4 years ago, so it's been like 4.5 years since I've read the script from start to finish. So I believe there was one night where they actually didn't have any steak, so they actually robbed the three guys. They actually robbed a slaughterhouse, or what? Where they like stole a
butchery.
A butchery, yeah. They stole like a whole half cow, and they brought it to their bar, and they tried to cook it themselves. And I'm not sure if it worked out or not, but that's part of the comedy. But the great thing about the comedy is that I believe pretty much every story they tell in the movie actually happened.
Wow.
And one of the writers was one of the guys who lived it. He is one of the three individuals that the movie's all about.
So very little embellishment.
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, he was definitely on set most of the days that we were working, just to make sure that things were happening accurately. Of course, it's a movie. Some things are exaggerated.
Yeah.
Some things are, removed to protect certain people. But the foundation of what actually happened back in the 70s is in the movie for sure.
Wow. And how would you describe your character in the movie? I know that you grew out your hair for it. You had some pretty cool facial hair.
That was the normally I keep like a buzz cut to a certain degree. Like I don't let my hair grow out too long, but I think I went like that was the longest I probably ever let my hair grow out. It wasn't anything like Fabio or anything like that, but I went like 2 or 3 months without cutting my hair, which usually I get a haircut once a month. So it was definitely a little bit bushier than normal because it's the 70s, but I grew up my beard quite a bit because they weren't exactly sure what kind of facial hair they wanted, but they had to go with something for the 70s, so they ended up choosing going with chops.
Yeah.
The good old-fashioned chops. You can see those chops in the trailer easy enough, and a few people saw that and they're like, "Man, you're just ugly with those things." I'm like, I know. The funny thing was after we wrapped filming, we had a cast and crew party. And of course, by then I'd shaved completely and I cut my hair the way I wanted. And a few of the actresses that I worked with, they didn't even recognize me at first. They're like, "Hey, how you guys doing?" I was like, "Oh my God, Chris! Wow, I didn't even recognize you. You're different." I'm like, "Yeah, this is me. Me.
This is how I normally look.
This is how I normally look, without the long hair and the mean face and the chops."
And then as far as your character's personality goes, what kind of research or what do you do to get into character, or how do you study? Did you go hang out with some gangs for a couple weeks and see what they do? Or
That's like a Christian Bale level of method acting that I don't think I'll ever adapt. But I definitely talked to the guy who wrote the script, the guy who experienced it, and he told me what he knew about the guy. The actual guy that I'm portraying, he's still alive and he's still in jail. What he
does that make you nervous that if he sees this movie and doesn't like
from
how
what
you portray
from what I know
him?
from what I know, he's in jail for life because of the things he did.
He
So
may
I
have
don't
contacts on the outside.
maybe, but if he's got a problem with my performance, then he can talk to my agent. But
this was overseas too, wasn't it? So
no, this was actually we shot this in Delray, Florida.
okay. Is that the actual location of where?
I believe the actual location was somewhere in New York, but that
Okay.
proved because of the time of year that we were filming and because of the finances, it was much better to shoot it in Florida. Because like we were filming in the wintertime, and there's no way in hell that they were going to shoot
in a snowstorm
in New York in the wintertime. Plus, obviously, it's way more expensive to shoot things in New York versus Florida. The budget for the film, it was like $500,000, I think it was,
Oh, wow.
$500,000 for the budget. So for an indie film, it was a pretty decent budget.
Yeah.
It was probably the biggest budget indie film that I've ever been a part of as far as being a good supporting character. I've been lead roles in movies before, but those were like less than 100,000, something like that.
Cool. That's awesome.
But as far as my character is concerned, I talked to the guy who lived it. I definitely was drawing inspiration from, gangster characters that I'd seen, borrowing ideas from other actors' performances.
Like which actors? What gangster actors?
I'm trying to
were you-
remember.
Like Al Pacino, Kevin
No.
Costner.
He was not like a mob boss by any means. He was just a very, very. He was definitely a racist.
So like American History X, maybe.
Honestly, I actually drew a lot of inspiration from a wrestler, Dean Ambrose. He was employed
Nice.
in the WWE, and
Yeah.
his character was called the ludicrous fringe. Because he was just like he was just one of those guys who he did not give a rat's ass about his own body. He was like a human kamikaze, and he would do anything and everything to destroy himself and his opponent at the same time. So. And he was like anti-authority, anti-establishment. He didn't give a rat's ass about what anybody thought, and the gimmick worked, whether he was a good guy wrestler or a bad guy, a face or a heel. So it worked either way. So I drew. A lot of people, when they saw pictures of me, like, "Dude, you look like Dean Ambrose." I'm like, I know, I know that was not intentional, but they gave me like some fake tattoos, and And it worked out because this was right before I moved to Atlanta, and this was right before I lost some weight. This is the most I weighed in my entire life because the guy, he was supposed to be big, and
So was
I think
that
I weighed.
muscle weight, or was that like just
Well,
eating a lot of pasta? Or
Well, I worked out every day, but I was living with my grandma at the time, and so grandma's cooking. I had
you were loving it.
true, but I was in a bad habit of drinking like multiple sodas a day, so it was like I was very big and muscular, but I definitely had some baby fat that needed to be lost. But I think I weighed like 245 when I did that movie. And then I moved to Atlanta. I changed my diet a little bit, and I dropped like 20 pounds in like 2 months.
Wow.
I didn't even really change my lifestyle, except I cut out sodas and I cut out a few other things, and 20 pounds just shed off like it was nothing.
That's amazing.
I'm like 230 right now, but I'm getting older. I'm an old man.
I know the feeling.
I just turned 32. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
And let's see, another show that you were on, Turn, which it was...
Turn Washington Spies, yeah.
Yes, which is a great show.
The great show about...
Another period piece.
A period piece.
A little bit older than the 1970s.
A little bit, yeah, a couple hundred years. Revolutionary War, George Washington era.
1770s.
1770s, yeah, that kind of thing. 1780s, but yeah, Turn Washington Spies, that was a very popular show on AMC Network. Surprisingly, it only lasted 4 seasons. A lot of people were very surprised about that. I'm not sure why exactly the show was canceled.
Execs make some weird decisions sometimes and cancels
True.
some of the best shows, especially Netflix lately. No offense, Netflix, I love you.
Well, I know exactly why that's happening. Disney's getting their own thing, and so they're like, hopefully all the shows that are being canceled from Netflix, like Daredevil and whatnot, they'll come back on the Disney network.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
So back to Turn.
Back to Turn. But we filmed that. That was a fun gig. We filmed that in Virginia, and the costumes were totally legit. They had them. They made them exactly like they made the clothing back then. Everything was cotton. I had like 4 or 5 layers of clothing, and I'm actually glad that we were shooting in the winter time because 4 or 5 layers of clothes like that'll get you hot in the summertime. I really hope that they didn't shoot that show in the summer at all. Those actors must have been miserable if that was the case. But the set was amazing. We shot right next to the studio, but they had a set in the backyard of the studio where they had some forest. They had like a whole clearing, and they had dozens of tents and horses and stuff. It literally, you're walking onto the set, it actually felt like you were back in the 1700s because everybody was in costume. Everybody had their wigs on just like a certain way. They had horses, they had wagons, they had all the guns were the right way, all the food and all the fires and just all the shelters. Like literally everything was completely period, except for the guys with cameras and sound equipment and lighting and everything.
Except for the boom mic hanging above your
head.
Of
course. And that giant screen covering the sun just the right way. But that was a fun gig. I was only a day player, but it's always fun when you get to travel and, they take care of your hotel and per diem and, set you up with all that. So the night before my first day of shooting, I was definitely just chilling in my hotel room, enjoying a pizza, watching TV, enjoying myself.
And did they make the uniform to your sizes, or did they adapt and cut it to and had a larger size and just kind of
I don't think they had to adjust it for my size. They had, because I was on season 3, they had just hundreds and hundreds of costumes over the time that they were doing the show. So they pretty much had, enough costumes to where they had, enough sizes for just about anybody.
Nice.
But I had my costume fitting the day before, and we tried on a few different things, saw what worked, and my hat made me feel like Napoleon, man. I couldn't help but take a picture. I had the hat on, and I was just like, oh yes, I'm too tall to play the guy, but yes, this is Napoleon.
And what did you have to do for research for that? Because it's a little bit different accent than you have.
Well, I had to do because it was for the audition, they specifically asked for they pretty much asked for this all the time with Turn, because it's a British accent, but because at this point it's about 2 or 3 generations removed, because it's
been Americanized, and we've ruined things like we always do with the British stuff.
Well, British ruin a few things too. You know, a fair,
Other than their teeth.
fair and fair, but fair is fair.
Sorry,
but
I love you, British.
we're good. We're good. We're good. But no, I'm a big history buff anyway. So like the Revolutionary War. I mean, I was already pretty familiar with that stuff to begin with. But as far as the accent is concerned, they wanted a British accent, but because the British had already been settling in America for probably, like I said, 2 or 3 generations by this point. So like the accent was kind of, it was still English, it was still British, but it was kind of like slowly but surely losing its flavor, so to speak.
Yeah.
So just saying things like, Missy, that's very well done. I'm going to make sure you're going to be doing the things all over the place. So it's kind of like the character, they wanted him like a little English, a little Irish. Everyone's kind of like mixed up because it's just a bunch of European people all coming here.
Yeah, and especially in New York, because that's where most of the boats were landing. So everybody from Europe coming over.
This part of the story was actually taking place in where Charlestown's in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. This part of the story was taking
Sorry,
place.
I'm getting
in
my
North
movies
Carolina.
mixed up, aren't I? New York was the last movie we were talking about.
Well, the majority of the Revolutionary War took place in the southern states because that's where the British came in because it was easiest. So they came into the southern states and they were working their way up north and they were just kicking the colonists' butts for the longest time. And then that's where the colonists, the Americans, so to speak, created guerrilla warfare. They literally invented that, where instead of like just everybody standing in a straight line and shooting at each other and until one army retreats. You see that in Mel Gibson movies like The Patriot, for example.
Yeah.
And that's the way war was done back then. They all just stood in a straight line and shot at each other until one army retreated. And of course, the redcoats, the British, they were highly, highly trained, efficient marksmen, and the colonials, they barely even had an army, so of course they were getting their butts kicked. So they developed this new style of warfare among the militia colonists called guerrilla warfare, which is basically you just attack them anywhere you can. You see some redcoats, shipping some stuff down a road, blow them up. You cut off their supply lines without warning. You don't agree to meet at a field and have at each other. You just attack them anywhere and everywhere you possibly can without warning, with totally surprise attacks. The British refer to it as being very cowardice, but it's like when you're fighting an opponent who is bigger and stronger than you, yeah, you can't go toe to toe with them. You got to outsmart them. Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And that's what the colonists did, and that's what ended up winning us the Revolutionary War. And 200 years later, here we are.
So for all you history buffs, there's a lesson for you for today. Learn a little bit of everything on this show every once in a while.
That's a big part of being an actor. You constantly have to learn new things, and it's a gift. The fact that we get to portray certain characters like this that are back in the 70s or back in the 1700s or whatever, and you need to do some research. You need to educate yourself on what was it like back then. What were these characters like back then? What were politics like back then? Religious things, food, clothing, etc.
Because you don't want to get on set and be like, "Hey, what's up?" in 1776.
What's up, my fellow colonists? What kind of rats are we stewing today?
This episode brought to you by Chuck's Trucks. That's right, the truck for schmucks who just don't give a huck about a duck's cluck. Chuck's Trucks.
And you've also worked on one of my favorite internet shows, Roommates Unwanted.
Unwanted.
I've seen so many shows in Atlanta here just kind of pop up and fade away. Some of them I'll watch and just I can't get into for whatever reason, this reason or that.
There's a lot
I
of
love
web series
Roommates
like that.
Unwanted.
Roommates Unwanted was a lot of fun. That was one of those no-budget web series that a group of friends who came together and they just wanted to do it. Some of them had filmmaking and acting experience. Some of them just wanted to be a part of it. And I met these people shortly after I moved to Atlanta, and when they first told the idea, I kind of had the same idea that you were just talking about. I was like, oh, great, another group of people are trying to make a web series, because there's so many. The reasons why a lot of people do web series is because it is so cost efficient. You don't need any money to do a web series. You just need some equipment and some people that half-ass know what they're doing, and that's why most web series are terrible. Roommates Unwanted, on the other hand, even though they had no production value, they had no budget, when I saw the first couple episodes, it was funny. It was really, really funny. The cast had tremendous chemistry together, and the writing was really well, and they executed the humor pretty well. And after that, I was like, you know what? I didn't really want to be a part of this at first, but now that I'm actually seeing the product and seeing the vision that they always had in their heads for it, I told them I'd like to be a part of this at some point. So they did their first season. And the first season actually was pretty successful. They entered it into some web series film festivals, and they actually won an Audience Choice Award at a festival in Florida. Ironically, everything's in Florida. It's like I moved away from Florida to Atlanta to get more opportunities, and it keeps going back there. But and then season 2, it took a little while to get season 2 on the road because they wanted season 2 to have a little more of a budget, a little more production value. So they did some crowdfunding. They did some stuff. They raised some money, and they got raised some money for it, and they were able to pull off season 2. And it was way more organized the second season. They had a little more toys to play with on the equipment side of things, and they definitely shot on a lot more locations. The first season primarily it was all shot in one location, the main house. They still shot in a lot of scenes in the main house in the second season, but they were able to go to more locations like schools and streets and other places. But my character and the one that they made for me in the season 2 was a reoccurring character, Win Champley. He was sort of a evil realtor, so to speak. His catchphrase was like, "You come to play, I come to win." He was just a very over the top, egotistical, his way or the highway kind of guy, and he would always try to manipulate the roommates to leave their current landlord and get something with him. He would go to the lengths of like going through their mail to try to get like stuff on them or spy on them, and he was just very condescending, but for some reason he was still funny. I kept hearing over and over again people like, "Oh my God, I love your character. He's hysterical." And I'm like, because like when you're doing the thing, you're trying to make the character as real as possible. And there's this one scene where me and the current landlord of the roommates, my character Win Chamley, hates his guts because to me he is the one and only thing standing in between me and my big paycheck. So I'm just talking to him. I'm trying to get some ideas, and there's a point in the script where we're literally just saying yes, back and forth, over and over again to each other.
Yes.
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 Exactly. And when I first read it in the script, I was just laughing out loud. It's very, very rare that I'll read a script that actually makes me laugh out loud, and I was just laughing hysterically, and I was like, this is going to be so funny. And then when we shot it, it didn't feel funny at all. A lot of people, some people may realize when you're shooting a scene, you do it over and over and over and over again. Sometimes you get one hit wonder, sometimes you do it 2 or 3 times, sometimes you do it dozens of times.
And by the time you get to the 12th time, you don't feel like it's funny anymore because you've done the joke a dozen times.
True, but it's like even while we were doing it, we hated each other. We both were trying to one up each other. So it to us and as our characters, it wasn't funny at all. It was like we were literally like, "I'm better than you. No, I'm better than you. No, I'm better than you. No, I'm better than you. Shut up, I'm better than you." That's kind of like the subtext, if you will. So when we were filming it, I was kind of like second guessing myself. I'm like, is this? I don't think I was worried. I was genuinely worried that it was not going to be funny. And then when it came out, it wasn't as funny to me because I knew it was coming and because we did it a lot. But I heard a lot of other people say it was hysterical. So I'm like, okay, if they say it's funny, I'm gonna go with funny. It worked.
Yeah, I thought it was hysterical.
But yeah, it was a fun character. I showed up for a few episodes, and they just had me do the most ridiculous things. Like there was this gag where I would just pop up out of nowhere. It was almost like supernatural, like in the Friday the 13th movies. Like they're running away from Jason, and he just they never explain how he just
He
supernaturally
comes from
just
screen right for no reason.
he just magically pops up out of nowhere, and they kind of did that with Win Champley, except it wasn't like a horror film. It was just like, whoa, where'd he come from? It was just sort of like one of those comedic things. It was kind of like the butler from Mr. Deeds. I am a bit of a sneaky
Yes.
sir. You know, he just pops up out of nowhere and then vanishes, and people are like, where'd he go? It was kind of like something like that with Win Champley. It was a little gag they created, and I was like, that's funny. We'll do that.
And what was it like transitioning or coming into a show that you've watched, you've seen established on YouTube, and you see that this entire cast has chemistry already, and now you're the new kid on the block? Were they open arms? Were they a little bit hesitant to let you in because they knew your character and that you were trying to destroy them, or?
Well, it wasn't really like that because I had already known these people. We were already friends for a number of years before I even came on board to the project. So, I mean, they were very welcoming to anybody, you know, whether you were a reoccurring character or just like a random person who's just saying one line. You know, they were very, very open and very welcoming. So, no, it was nothing like, there was no pressure like, oh my God, I'm on Roommates Unwanted. You know, it's a really funny, it's a web series.
But there was definitely a mutual respect then.
There was mutual
amongst
respect,
all of you.
and they definitely had a fan base. I think there's certain episodes in their first season that has like a couple thousand YouTube hits, which, you know, it's not a lot, but when you consider how small this thing was, you know, that's the fact that, you know, literally thousands of people are watching your product. You know, the filmmakers who were behind all this, they definitely took a little pride with that. They definitely took pride in their work, as they should, because when you come up with ideas, write them down on paper, figure out, okay, does this work? Does that work? Is this funny? Is that funny? Is this actually flowing in the story? Are you getting your beginning, middle, and end for every episode? Are the characters, is there chemistry in the characters? Is there chemistry in the actors? Are we getting the schedules together? I mean, even for a low budget or no budget web series, I mean, that's still a big mountain to climb to just pull off one season, let alone two. Because as you've stated, a lot of web series attempts, they don't get a second season. You know, they're lucky if they're finished the first season. Because a lot of people, they'll shoot like 2 or 3 episodes, oh, this is harder than I thought, and they just quit.
Yeah.
And these
people don't realize that making movies is work.
They don't
making
realize.
shows is work. It's not just the glamorous come to the wrap party and the red carpets. There's long, horrible days they should go through.
I was just having a conversation with this kid in some of the classes I take. You know, he's very curious about, you know, acting. He doesn't necessarily want to get into acting or film industry, but he just has a lot of curious questions, as a lot of people do. And I was just letting him know just like how many people are involved in the process of making a movie. And I went on IMDb just to show him an example. I pulled up Avengers Infinity War on IMDb, and I clicked on the cast and crew list. I skipped the cast because that's what everybody looks at. And just slowly but surely we scrolled down the crew list, and his jaw just kept getting lower and lower and lower, because he saw that there was literally thousands of people. You know, thousands of people, hundreds of people on the visual effects team, hundreds of people on the crew list, the camera list, the lighting crew, the sound crew, the editing crew, the props, the makeup, the transportation, the food, the producers, the directors, the assistant directors, the camera guys. I mean, even like the, you know, Avengers Infinity War, that was like a $300 million movie. But it's like the thousands and thousands of people on the, you know, possibly even millions of man hours that went into making that. That's a lot. Even, you know, and even if you go from a $300 million project to like Roommates Unwanted, where I think the second season they had maybe a couple thousand, maybe $3,000 or $4,000 to the budget. That's still, you know, they had cast and crew. They had 2 or 3 dozen people involved, all in all, and, you know, a lot of editing, you know, a lot of hours went into editing, a lot of hours went into everything. So, you know, even from the biggest project to the littlest guy, you know, there's a lot of work, there's a lot of man hours and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into our craft.
Yep, from top down, everybody's working hard.
Yep.
Nobody's sitting back, relaxing. Even the stars, when everybody on set is moving things around, repositioning cameras, they're still in back. They're going over their lines again. They're rehearsing, and getting
Sometimes
their
they're
hair and
auditioning.
makeup fixed up,
Sometimes they're
auditioning. They're
auditioning.
doing video auditions and sending
A
those
lot
in.
of actors, their schedules are so busy and so hectic that they have to do their auditions for other projects in their own trailers.
Because there's no guarantee of another job when you're an actor.
Even when
Unless
you're
you're
a
in
big
a series.
Yeah.
But even those get canceled.
Yeah.
So there's no guarantee.
It's like, oh great, I became a regular on a TV show. This is gonna be awesome. This is gonna be a launching pad, and then it's like even some big TV shows. I remember there was one TV show that was shooting in South Florida when I was still there. They tried to reboot the Charlie's Angels TV show. Drew Barrymore herself was executive producer. It got canceled after 4 episodes.
Yeah.
They filmed 8, but just everything, the ratings were horrible. The actual actresses who were playing the Charlie's Angels, they weren't getting along. And even if you get a big name like Drew Barrymore and you get millions and millions of dollars on board, there's no guarantees. Nothing.
Yeah. You get series like Firefly, R.I.P. Loved Firefly. There's a lot of us nerds out there that just adore Firefly. One season and it got canceled. And it was after Joss Whedon had just done like 13 years of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
No.
One of the biggest hits, and you just never know. People
No.
loved Firefly, and they just decided, no, we don't need any more of that.
No.
So they put something else on the WB that.
There's a lot of shows in Atlanta who the shows come out and you're like, I really like this show. This is a good show, and then it gets canceled after 1 season. There's a TV show that I auditioned for a few times called Kevin Probably Saves the World.
Yeah.
And it came out and a lot of people liked it. It was one of the there's a lot of TV shows in Atlanta that are dramas that are really heavy, like Empire or Star or other things like that, where it's very entertaining and it's very good shows, but it's like it's just drama. It's just drama, and it's just a whole lot of negativity. This person's betraying that person. This person's sleeping with that person's wife or husband or whatever. And Kevin Probably Saves the World. That was like the one show that came out that had a very positive vibe and an uplifting vibe, and this guy was trying to help people, and it was a comedy, and so it was a very feel good movie. And then it got canceled after the first season, and everybody, a lot of us local actors were like, dude, what the hell? That was a fun project. That was a good show, and just because it had a positive vibe on it, it's like, no, we don't want that on TV.
Yeah.
No. Everybody wants drama nowadays, which is true, but it's like, come on, we need something lighthearted as well. But you can also go overboard with the lightheartedness, like Big Bang Theory. They're finally ending their show after 12 or 13 seasons.
Yeah.
I
billionaires.
I love Big Bang Theory, but even me, a diehard fan, after about the 8th season, I was like, okay, it's starting to get a little old now.
Yeah.
Because
it's hard to keep it fresh.
It's very hard to keep it fresh.
And you can only change the character so much.
Yeah.
Before you start to lose the fan base.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I liked him better at the beginning, and then he's gone. If you keep him the same, then people get bored.
Well, that's a huge challenge for the writers and the actors, of course. When you have a show that goes for 1 season, 2 season, 5, 6, 7, when the show keeps going, the characters have to evolve. The characters have to change. They can't just stay the same, because naturally this story is taking place. Each season is supposed to represent 1 year of their life. Do any of us stay the same after 7 or 8 years?
Only if you're in a coma.
Yeah, exactly. The foundation will always be there, but we do change. Every few years we grow and we evolve and we become different people. I was definitely different when at the age of 24 versus now 32. So yeah, I'm sure everyone can say the same for that. Yeah. So obviously the characters need to change as well.
Well, let's go ahead and take a break quick. But before we do, I want to ask you a trivia question based on your experience.
Uh-oh.
On your IMDb, you have 30 credits listed.
Mm-hmm.
Of those 30 credits, how many would you guess that you played a man in uniform? That could be a cop, that could be military, and I'm also going to include as a Cub Scout leader.
We're going that far, are we?
Still a man in uniform.
Do I have to just shoot out a guess, or can I actually count?
If you want to count, that's great. If you want to guess, if you want to count, get to a point and we'll buffer it.
Uniform. Okay. I definitely had a uniform for the Glades. That's the Boy Scout you're talking about.
In turn, we already talked about.
Well, I'm going to go down the list.
Okay, you're going in.
If I go out of order, I'm going to miss something
We're
for
gonna
sure.
throw you off.
Um,
I'm trying to get you to lose this game.
I sort of had a uniform for Burn Notice because my character was disguised as a maintenance guy in maintenance uniform, but he was a spy, so I'm not sure if you're counting that or not.
I think I did. If it said spy or something along those lines, I would have counted it.
I was a detective for America's Most Wanted. I was a security guard for Magic City. I was a detective for all the crime reenactment shows. There was the Casey Anthony. There was #Murder. There was Fatal Attraction. There was, God, I'm trying to remember everything. There was a one I shot in Tampa. I can't think of it. Crime with Tamron Hall or whatever the heck that one was. I was in a uniform for Turn Washington Spies, as you said. I was in a uniform for Patient Killer. I was a cop. I was in a uniform for Star. I was in a uniform for The Ultimate Sacrifice. I was a Marine. So, I'm looking at least a dozen.
Close. 15 of them I counted.
15, okay.
Yep. Half of them.
What was I missing?
I don't know. I don't have the list in front of me. I just wrote 15 as men in uniform.
A lot of them were the crime reenactment shows I did, which I did a lot last year.
But let's go ahead and take that break, and we will be right back after a couple messages from our sponsors.
Getting sick of coffee?
Yeah.
Mint feeling overused?
Yes.
Tired of the same old enema flavors?
Absolutely.
Now introducing the first cinnamon-infused enema, the Cinnamonema.
All right.
It's an anal cleansing with a delicious aroma of cinnamon rolls.
Mmm. This smells yummy.
It's not just an enema. Every order comes with a free box of cinnamon rolls. It's the best way to cleanse both ends.
And welcome back to the Above Average Joe Show. We are here with Chris Marks, and we are going to talk a little bit about another show that you worked on called Tycoon.
Tycoon.
This was it a web series? How did this come out?
Technically, that was a web series, yeah. Basically, it was a pretty funny story. I got a email from my agent. It was from my agent down in Florida, which after I moved to Atlanta, I didn't hear from her very often. And it was for this big web series Tycoon, and I heard that Florida was getting a bunch of big web series coming up because of a new thing that was happening. And I looked at the breakdown for this thing. I'm like, okay, let's see, because like any project I get, I always check out who the director is, who the producers are, just to get familiar with their work. And I look up the director, and it's Louis Leterrier, and he's a French director, and he was the director of The Incredible Hulk, Now You See Me, Clash of the Titans, Transporter 1, Transporter 2, the Jet Li Morgan Freeman movie Unleashed. Literally every single movie this guy's ever done, I've seen, and I even own some of his movies. So the second I saw him, like, oh my God, this is a huge director. And this is, it's a web series, but it was, I don't know, I think they had like a few $1 million to the budget for this. It was kind of a passion project for him. But, so I auditioned for one of the main roles, and then they had me audition again for a separate role, and auditioned for that. Had 2 callbacks, and then they booked me, and I was so excited because I was like, this is going to be the biggest director I've ever worked with in my life. This could be a big launching pad for me. And of course, just like we talked about earlier, I moved to Atlanta to get better opportunities, and this was shooting in Miami. So I had to go back to Florida, which I didn't mind because anytime I get a gig in Florida, I always get to visit family and whatnot. But it was such a unique project because it was a web series, but it was a pretty big budget. Like I said, they had a few $1 million, and of course, Louis Leterrier was directing, and his wife, she was the producer of it. She's a producer, but she's also a well-known actress. She was in the first Alvin and the Chipmunks movie, she was the main guy's love interest. Um, Cameron Richardson, I believe her name is. If I'm butchering your last name, I apologize. But but yeah, that was a fun project because one, I was getting to work on with some big name people, but um, we shot in a couple of regular things like some houses, nothing too fancy, shooting in cars, but like on two separate occasions, my character got to film in the penthouse of skyscrapers in South Beach, Miami, and downtown Fort Lauderdale. So we were like had beautiful views of the ocean. You know,
Nice.
we're like 400 or 500 feet high, and just the first time I was in Fort Lauderdale, we're in the penthouse of a building in Fort Lauderdale, and it was just a gorgeous view of the beach and the ocean in the morning. And then about a week later, we were shooting in the penthouse of one of the tallest buildings in South Beach, Miami, and gorgeous day. I got videos and pictures on Facebook of it, and it was breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking, and just one of those things where you're looking down and all the people are literally ants, and I'm like, so this is what it's like to be Godzilla, looking down at all those tiny little ant humans.
Which side note you also worked on.
Yeah, I think you had a hand in that,
A little bit.
the new Godzilla King of the Monsters movie that comes out in May.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which we can't discuss at the moment because it's not out yet. So we'll skip over that.
We'll skip over that.
If you get a chance, check it out.
You might see a familiar face or a familiar voice. We'll see.
And so when I watched Tycoon the first time, it reminded me a lot of Black Mirror. It could have totally been a Black Mirror episode off of Netflix because it's one of those almost Twilight Zone mixed with technology
Yeah.
sort of storylines. How would you describe the storyline and what happens in Tycoon?
The basic plot is that your main, one of the main characters, he was the son of a CEO of one of the biggest real estate companies in Miami. Just huge company, multi-billion-dollar, and he was supposed to become her what's the word I'm looking for? Take her spot, her successor.
Successor, yes.
He was supposed to become her successor.
I was
He was
about to say
supposed
protege, but that's not
Yeah,
right.
no, he was supposed to become her successor, the new CEO, but he had issues with alcohol, and she did a breathalyzer test on him in front of the whole board of directors, humiliated him, and appointed somebody else. And he was so angry, so humiliated, that he put out this plot to absolutely destroy his mother. But he couldn't do it himself, because then people would realize what was going on, so he found a puppet. He found this random girl that he met in a supermarket. She was a cashier in a supermarket, and he basically, long story short, he made a deal with her that he would pay her $5 million if she gave him 1 year of her life. So basically, he would make every decision for her for a year. He would give her contacts that had cameras in them, so he could see everything she did. He would have earplugs in her ear so he could talk to her. And he made rules like never take the earpiece or the contact out, never lie, follow every order that he gives her, and at the end of a year he would give her $5 million. She agrees to it.
Seems like a safe bet at first.
Of course. She was kind of like not happy with her life. She was like in her late 20s, and she was a mom.
With a kid, yeah.
She was a mom, and her husband, and their son was in a wheelchair, and so they had a lot of financial issues. So it sounded like a good deal at the time, because she's like, well, what do I got to lose? Come to find out, she had a lot to lose, because this guy was going to destroy everyone. But basically, he was using her to set up a huge real estate deal that would ultimately, it was designed to destroy his mother's reputation, and he could take over and become the CEO of that company. And my character, for those people that are familiar with real estate, is an agent with the Security and Exchange Commission, sort of a detective of real estate, sort of a cop of real estate, making sure everybody's following the rules and doing everything legally.
Man in uniform again.
Man in uniform again. Which, by the way, that suit was like the first time I ever had a fitted suit. It was tailored.
They make you feel nice.
That was the first time in my life I ever had a tailored suit, and man, I looked sharp. I looked so sharp in that, and I asked the costume people, I was like, how much would it cost? I'm interested in buying this when we're done filming. How much would it cost? And they were talking about it, and then I I don't know what happened. I lost contact with them, and I wasn't able to get the suit. It sucked, but it was all right. You know, I still looked good, but my character was a Security and Exchange Commission agent, and I knew I was obviously aware of this deal but I knew something was off about it. My character, he was like, okay, here's this girl. She, as far as my character was aware of, I've never even heard of her name in the real estate investing world, and she just comes out of nowhere and gets the biggest deal in the entire city. Okay, I gotta find out what the heck is going on here, but he knew from the start that something was fishy about this. There was something illegal about this, and he was trying to get to the bottom of it. And of course, since she has the mastermind, watching and listening to everything that happens, he was making sure that she stayed as far away from my character as possible. So there's a scene where my character kind of takes matters into his own hands. He just shows up in her hotel room unannounced.
Creepy.
Well, when he's trying to get a hold of her for literally months and she's not returning his calls, that's one thing I kind of liked about the guy, is that he, in a way, he's kind of like Batman, to where it's like he'll take law into his own hands, and he's not he has no problem with bending the rules, so to speak, to get a job done.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't going to take no for an answer for her, so he just literally shows up in her hotel room, and she's like, "How the heck did you get in here?" And he actually tells her, one of the perks to my job is I know all the dirty secrets of everyone in the city, and dirty little secrets are the keys to anywhere in the city. So apparently he's got dirt on everyone. That's how he was able to get into her very nice hotel room without any issues with security or anything like that. So he's basically, it was a statement. He was like, "You can run all you want. I will get what I need to do my job."
Nice.
And my character, they shot 9 episodes of the series. I was in 5 of them. I worked on the set a total of 8 or 9 days, and so it was just a fun experience. It was really great to actually get to, because like usually when you work on a TV show, like I'll work 1, maybe 2 days tops, so you really don't have a lot of time to establish any connection or any relationship with the directors or producers or other cast members or crew or whatever. But anytime you get to work on a project for like 5, 7, 8 days, you actually get to build some relationship, and that's why I was so excited, because I'm like, this is a big, big director. I mean, he's been there, done that. He's worked with some of the biggest names in Hollywood, and if I get him, at least in a good enough position with him where he'll remember me, I might get a chance to audition for some of his big movies in the future, and he'll be like, "Oh yeah, Chris, I remember working with him on Tycoon. Yeah, I'll definitely take a closer look at his audition versus
bring him in as the new Hulk."
I don't know about that. I'm pretty sure what's his name is doing a pretty good job with it right now. Who's that actor?
Ruffalo?
Ruffalo. That guy.
Yeah, some Ruffalo guy.
He's done some small
done a few
projects.
things.
But actually, it's
He's
funny.
working his way up.
But it's funny because Mark Ruffalo was in Now You See Me 1 and 2, which Louis Leterrier he directed the first one and he executive produced the second one, and he was the director of Incredible Hulk, and then Mark Ruffalo becomes the Incredible Hulk. I'm not sure if Louis had anything to do with that, but it's kind of ironic how these things go about. But yeah, Tycoon was unfortunately Tycoon did not go the directions that they wanted it to, because like they had plans for it to actually be one of the first shows exclusively on Snapchat.
Oh wow.
And they were going to corner the market, because and when I first heard it, I thought it was a weird idea. It's like, how in the hell are you going to have a show on Snapchat? That doesn't make any sense. And one of the producers was telling me, they were like, well, 10 years ago when the idea first came out of having movies and TV shows available on Amazon or iTunes, people thought that was weird too. Now that's a norm. And so I'm like, well, hey, if you are like the very first series to come out on Snapchat, I mean, that would at the very least get some attention. But I don't know what happened. Somehow the show got out of their hands and it went to a different company called Black Pills, which it's kind of like, Black Pills is kind of like Netflix.
Okay.
but they're exclusive to web series. All their shows are web series.
And we are going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we will be back in a moment.
Does your dog, cat, or child suffer from a tapeworm? Not to worry. We at the Anti-Worm Foundation have genetically engineered a solution just for you. It's the first scientifically designed tape bird. This tape bird can smell, hunt, and devour any tapeworm within 1,000 feet of its beak nostrils. It looks, sounds, and feels like a real bird. Get yours today by calling 1555-GOT-TAPE. That's 1555-GOT-TAPE. Not to be taken orally. To be used similar to a suppository only. Side effects include bird flu and anal bleeding.
And on that, let's go ahead and go to something that you've been working on recently. And you've been doing a little bit of voiceover with one of your passions of wrestling, with Southern Honor Wrestling.
Yeah.
What has that been like since they just started out, and you've been with them basically from the beginning, helping them promo and...
Not from the beginning. They first of all, I've been a big professional wrestling fan most of my life. WWF, WWE, Raw and SmackDown, all that stuff. It's one of my big enjoyments, big pastimes. It's, you know, a lot of people are like, why do you watch wrestling? It's fake. I'm like, I enjoy it because it's fake. Because like,
it's
people,
entertainment.
it's like a lot of people are like, well, do you like boxing or UFC or MMA? You know, the real fighting. I'm like, no. I mean, I respect the hell out of that, but I don't find that entertaining. Wrestling, it's theatrical. It's a show. It's you know, it's all these different things. It's a story. It's sort of like, I've heard some people refer to it as the man's soap opera. But it's not just for guys. It's for everyone. But you have to have an acquired taste, I suppose, because not everybody gets it.
And to me, I feel like it would be the difference of, do you like watching Friends or do you like watching The Real Housewives of Atlanta? Because Friends is fake. If you don't realize that the whole thing is scripted and fake, but Real Housewives is trash.
Well, Real Housewives, that's reality television. There's nowhere near as much reality.
Boxing would be reality. The AMA would be reality, whereas the WWE would be more along the line of Friends.
WWE, one of the reasons they changed it from WWF to WWE is they wanted to. There's a thing with the World Wildlife Federation. We won't get into that, but it's like they changed it from World Wrestling Federation to World Wrestling Entertainment, because that's primarily what it is. They're sports entertainment, and that's what Vince McMahon and the WWE is so prominent about. Is like, we're not professional wrestling. We're sports entertainment, or whatever you want to call it. But anyway, I digress. Some buddies of mine, they work for Diamond Dallas Page, a former big name pro wrestler. He was a 3-time world heavyweight champion over in WCW, owned by Ted Turner, and he's a WWE Hall of Famer. And he created this yoga company a number of years back. And by the way, a little plug: anybody DDP Yoga, it is an amazing yoga. It's kind of like a... It's kind of the way Diamond Dallas Page puts it. He's like, it's not the kind of yoga where it's like, breathe in the positivity, exhale the negativity. It's more like a, yeah, you know, this is my yoga kind of thing. And because like Dallas, when he's like, okay, Hulk it out, stretch the cobra, do that, bro. You know,
and even Chris Jericho will back up the DDP
there's
yoga.
DDP yoga. There's a lot of professional wrestlers. There's a lot of guys that play for the NFL, the NBA, there's people from every branch of professional sports that will back up DDP yoga, saying that saved them from career-threatening injuries. It helped with their rehab. It helps them prevent getting injuries. Some guys, like Chris Jericho, for example, a huge wrestling star, he said that DDP yoga he would have retired probably about 7 or 8 years ago had it not been for DDP yoga, and he's still going strong to this day, because they take so much. Any pro athlete takes a lot of beatings, but especially pro wrestlers, their bodies take a pounding.
Yeah.
They need to have something that'll help them rehabilitate themselves. But anyway, so DDP yoga is great. Check it out. But my buddies, they work for Dallas over at DDP yoga, and they've always wanted. Some of them are wrestlers. independent wrestlers. Some of them are just filmmakers. My buddy Nathan Mowry, he does music videos all the time. His company is called Kind Punk. He's got a great, if you want a good music video, he'll definitely get you best quality stuff. He's done music videos for Chris Jericho's band Fozzy. He's done music videos for POD. He's done music videos for Funeral Portrait, a lot of good rock and roll bands. He's done documentaries, he's done a lot of stuff, but him and a couple other guys at DDP Yoga, they've been wanting to create their own wrestling promotion, and they ran into a couple of guys like Gary Lamb, who he's a business owner and a pastor at a church, and he's always wanted to create a wrestling promotion. And they spent a little over a year planning to make this company, and they created Southern Honor Wrestling. And their idea was, there's a lot of independent wrestling in Georgia, but most of it is like, they have almost no production values. Half their wrestlers are good, half their wrestlers are fat rednecks who have no business getting in the ring. And the idea with Southern Honor is they wanted to bring the very, very best of local wrestlers and wrestlers from all over the country and sometimes all over the world. They wanted to have the best of the best that money could buy, that they could afford, to have the best matches possible, have the best athletes possible. They brought in the best production values that they could. They brought in the best of everything that they could. The lead guitar guy from Fozzy, Rich Ward, he allows them to use a lot of the lighting and sound equipment that Fozzy uses for their concerts, for their shows.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And so when I heard, like, about a year before their first show, I heard them mention that they were thinking of doing it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then I didn't really hear anything about it since. And then about a month or two before their first show, I'm like, it became a reality. They were actually doing it. I'm like, oh wow, this is actually real. They're really doing it. And so I bought tickets, and I was going to support my friends, regardless if the show was good or bad. But I walk in there and I was blown away. I was not expecting that level of production value. I was not expecting that level of wrestling quality. They put on a hell of a show. And Diamond Dallas Page himself came in, kind of a surprise to everybody. They had a big name wrestler, Raven, there that first show, but DDP himself shows up, and he had a big speech to announce the match, the main event, to crown the first ever Southern Honor champion, which the first champion was Kevin Ryan. That kid, he's a toothpick, but man, he's a toothpick made out of raw iron.
He was fun to watch.
He's 19 years old, Kevin Ryan, and it's like he weighs like $150. He is a tiny guy, but he can wrestle and he can take a beating, man. Like I said, he's a toothpick, but he's a toothpick made out of chrome steel. He's almost indestructible. But it's like I have not missed a single one of their shows since, and I kept getting on their case. I was like, guys, it's like, I'm an actor. I do MC stuff. I would love to do something, be a part of your shows. And they're like, well, what do you think? It's like, I don't know. I could be a plant in your audience. I could be, for those who don't know, a plant is a staged audience member who like takes a hit or something like that from the wrestlers just to get some excitement. I could be a referee. I could be a ring announcer. I would love to be a ring announcer, but they have a damn good one right now. His name's Pat. I would love to be a ring announcer. I don't think I'd be damn good at it, but Pat, he's got this. I don't know how he does it. He's always
got it down.
He's always like, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Southern Honor. And he can do that for 3 hours. I'm like, how do you do that without ruining your voice? That would kill me. But and then somewhere along the lines it came up, it's like I pitched the idea. It's like, well, you guys do these promo videos all the times. How about I do voiceover work for your promos? And they're like, okay, well, send us an idea. So I pitched something to them, and they liked it, and I've been doing the voiceovers for their promos ever since. I've done probably about 5 or 6 voiceovers for their promo videos. And the funny thing is, because Southern Honor Wrestling is growing so quickly, and they're getting so much attention, after I did that first voiceover with them, I started getting messages on Facebook from promotions in Ohio and promotions in South Florida and all these other guys like, hey, could you do voiceovers for us? And I'm like, sure, $20 a pop, $30 a pop, I would do it in an instant.
Nice.
But yeah, Southern Honor, they literally just had a show this past Friday, and it was excellent. Very, very good show. And their next one is March 22nd. It's called The Summit. And the shows take place in Canton, Georgia. Tickets are only $10, and so it's definitely a worthwhile thing to check out.
Where do you find tickets?
You can go on www.southernhonorwrestling.com. You can buy them online there, or you can purchase them right there at the location in Canton at the Action Building, as they call it. And but yeah, you can go there and you can hear a familiar voice on one of the big screens. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Southern Honor Wrestling and all that shebang. But I do it better than that when I'm actually doing the voiceovers, but I don't want to blow out the mics you got here.
And I'll just go ahead and mention this quick too, is that we are not sponsored by Southern Honor Wrestling. They did not ask us to promo them. The only reason we're talking about it is because Chris has worked with them and Chris loves wrestling. So they're not paying us to promote them. They're not paying us to talk about them in a good way to get people to come out. We are doing this because it is a passion of Chris's.
Yep. We share because we love.
And we are going to go ahead and take a quick break, and we will be back in a moment with a cold read of a script that I wrote specifically for Chris. So stay tuned.
The pressure's on.
This episode brought to you by Sideburns. Sideburns. They're like a mustache for your ears.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. We are going to do something a little bit different and I'm hopefully a little bit fun for us.
We'll see about that.
Find out in a moment. What we're going to do is called a cold read. And for those of you that may not be familiar with that, a cold read is when an actor is given a script and they're given to them blindly. So Chris has not seen this script before. He doesn't know what's going on.
I'm reading this for the very first time.
Very first time. And I wrote it specifically for Chris because I knew that he could do a bunch of accents.
Oh, you wrote it just for me, did you? Yay.
But he has not prepared any of this, so the accents may come out a little bit funny, may come out a little bit weird.
I'm already
he may
losing
end up
my voice.
laughing in the middle of it. We don't know what's going to happen because it's a cold read.
FYI, I'm already losing my voice. We got some allergies. It's almost springtime here in Atlanta, so we got a lot of weird things floating in the air in case my voice doesn't keep up.
So basically, the script that I wrote, the character that Chris will be portraying is Agent Orange. Mm-hmm. All of the agents are named by color, so you are Orange.
It's an Oompa Loompa.
And you are a spy, and you had to go and get some secret plans. So you are you just got back from getting the secret plans, and you are getting debriefed by your captain, which will be played by me. So
since I'm a spy, should I be like James Bond, like Sean Connery?
You can start with any voice you want.
I'm not entirely sure what this. It says you're a captain. Are you my captain?
I am your captain, oh captain.
Captain, my captain. Yes. Sean Connery will love you. Come back to movies.
So let's go ahead and just jump right into this.
Are you just gonna change the accent all over the place, or are you doing?
You are.
You're giving me free will. Oh, how gracious of you.
Oh, it's in the script. You will know which accents to use.
Oh, is it? Okay, I didn't.
Yeah, once you get in there.
I just read the. Okay, so it does actually say when
French
to change accents.
In German accent, yes.
Yeah, this is okay.
This will be fun and interesting.
This will be interesting. Fun. We'll find out.
And we will go ahead and quiet on set.
Quiet on set.
And action. Great job, Agent Orange. We could have never recovered those secret plans without you.
First things first, that was beautiful. I have no idea why you've never made it as an actor. Sorry.
No breaking character. Stay in character, Agent Orange. Tell me, how did you do it? It must have taken precision timing and a lot of expertise knowledge.
Yes, it did. First, I had to locate the enemy headquarters, which I found to be in Alabama. So once inside, I done seen this doohickey thingamajig thing. I opened it and it said that they had just moved their plans to Sydney, mate, Sydney, Australia. So first thing I did catch a puddle jumper to the outback. Said Bob to Bobby some shrimp at Joey's. What the hell? Once the Aborigines let me go in exchange for my maglite.
Correct.
I found there were commandos and they were camped. So I covertly walked over there and over to the camp, broke into the main tent, only to overhear their plans. Well, now in
Oh my.
Mother Moscow it's a Russian accent now. So I bought vodka and barca in Melbourne, and by the end of the bottle I had landed on red soil. I thought maybe, just maybe, they keep the documents in Kremlin, but I find out that Babashuka.
From Babushka.
Babushka, okay. I'm Russian, but I don't know how to pronounce these things. Excuse me. My English is not so great. Documents go to Siberia. I take taxi halfway to Siberia. The other half I travel by a very brown bear. And I tamed them myself. I just got the salmon, a long pole for fishing, and in lake or stream. I now call him Igor. Igor, he helped me break in, and I find plans. But he find wrong plans, bad bear, very bad bear. Igor is plans he find were making batrushka.
Yeah,
Okay,
very good Russian food delicacy.
I'll have to take your word for it.
I don't know.
I haven't been to the mother country in a long time, so forgive
I
me.
had to Google that, so I'm not sure if I even said it right either.
Yes, Google has everything. It's very good. But we make vabrushka in Siberia very tasty, but little on tart side. Not bad though. I make you some later.
Ooh, I would like that, Agent Orange. I would love to try some of your babushka, batrushka, whatever it's called.
Sure. After we eat and wash down with keg of best vodka we could find, we intercept a message saying plans move again. No more Siberia. Now I go to Dublin, Ireland. Luck of the Irish for me. We already had been drinking so many White Russians. Igor, not so much. Igor can't hold his liquor. You think he's such a big bear? You know, he just I drank him under the table. It's ridiculous. But even with a shave and a bath, he's still stunk. We couldn't have none of that. No. So he swam across the channel and headed home. Luck of the Irish for me. I stumbled literally onto the right pub of for a gander, an overhead view of the scoundrels talking. Mean fellas, lads. But they say their plans were never made to Dublin, never made it. So they go as far as... Okay, here we go. I apologize to anyone who's listening who's German. I'm going to butcher this. Das ist nicht gut. Es nicht wunderbar. I know that one. So I go to Jamaican man.
How did you know the plans went to Jamaica?
I didn't, man. I just wanted to get to the sun rays and get to the ocean, man. It's a beautiful day. But thankfully, every now and then you go as a spy and you just get all these exotic places and exotic foods and beautiful people. It's great.
I totally can't blame you for that.
While I was there, man, I found out from a witch doctor that the plans had moved again, man. And so I only stayed in Jamaica for 6 months, but
Only
it was
6 months.
only 6 months. It was a very short-lived time. 6 months in Jamaica is like 6 hours. Einstein's relativity theory. It is so obvious over there, man. So after 6 months, I go leaving to the lost city of Atlantis. Oh my gosh, that water's cold, man.
And then where did you go from after Atlantis?
So, Des Moines, Iowa. I went to Des Moines, Iowa.
British accent.
Of course, with a British accent. And while I was there, I realized that I had something in my back pockets, still from Alabama. It was a thumb drive. The secret plans, they were there, and I had it with me the whole damn time.
But wait, why are you speaking in a British accent now?
Well, good show, Captain. I'm not an agent. I'm not Agent Orange. I'm really... Ouch! Oh, this... Damn it, this glue. Owie! Oh.
You mean your...
There, got it.
Tune in next week to the thrilling conclusion. But now for a sneak peek from next week.
I knew it was you all along, Agent Orange. While you were away, I first called... New Delhi.
Oh, to New Delhi, India.
Ensign! Woohoo! Ridiculous cold read.
Ridiculous. It doesn't even begin to phrase that.
But it was fun.
I'm sure
I
all of you at
enjoyed
home
it.
could tell that I was completely unprepared for that.
But you did a good job. You did a good job getting
Oh,
through
thank
for
you,
a
thank
cold
you, thank
read.
you. Of
Especially
course.
when I threw 7 accents at you in a row with not knowing that they were coming.
Oh, you gotta do what you gotta do, man. All kinds of crazy things coming at you as an actor, all kinds of things. These casting directors, they do all kinds of weird things, just throwing things at you from out of nowhere.
Well, I do want to thank you, Chris, for hanging out with me. Thank you for doing the podcast. Thanks
That was
for
a
being a
blast.
guest.
Thank you so much, Joe.
Oh, you're welcome, and hopefully we'll have you back again sometime.
I think we can work something out.
And do you have anything that you need to plug? Any websites, Instagrams, or anything where people can find you?
Okay. We kind of talked about it earlier, but like I said, I have a movie coming out in Miami, Off the Rails. I also have my episode of the TV show Fatal Attraction coming on the TV1 network, and I have a commercial coming out for Jack's Restaurant. I actually got to fly in an airplane for that one, so that'll be fun. And basically, just go on Facebook, check out Chris Marks Actor on Facebook, or you can check out some of my videos. Go on Vimeo.com and type in Chris Marks Actor. Also, you can go on IMDb and just type in Chris Marks. I'm the guy who Burn Notice is probably the first one that pops up. Yeah, check me out on Instagram. And my Instagram page is Chris Marks Actor. So there's a lot of Chris Marks actors because there's also a lot of Chris Marks chefs out there, and I try to avoid that. So I have to keep putting actor at the end of my last name. So Chris Marks Actor. You can find me on Vimeo, Instagram, and Facebook. Chris Marks Actor. Marks. Chris. And I'm going to spell everything until Joe edits it all out. Thanks, guys. A lot of fun.
Thanks, everyone. Tune in again next time for another wonderful, great podcast. Thank you again to our special guest, Chris Marks. The Above Average Joe Show was written and produced by me. Theme song composed and or arranged by yours truly. Be sure to check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitters, and look for us on Spotify and Stitcher. You can also check out another podcast I co-host, The Extra Unordinary, and other great media content by Moon Possum Productions at moonpossum.com.